right, we should have let you go last. That was beautiful. I had been in a relationship for about 24, 25 years. I met my first husband at 15, got married, so I was pretty broken and raw when was starting to work at the bank, and I had said a prayer to God, and I said, went through my divorce, and I said, I am not going to worry about meeting somebody. If you want me to meet somebody, and I didn't even know what I was saying, I said, you'll bring into my work, I will raise these two boys, and I will serve you. Kind of went on with my day, and within that week, Jeff walks in to be interviewed at the bank where I was at, and I had a list of, like, I want him to be over 6 feet tall. I want him to wear a suit. I want him to be white, and because my last husband was Hispanic, and I had all these things, and I felt like God kept saying, "Go say hi, and I did, and
Oh, she did.
I always said hi, and then little bit did I know in the next couple weeks, I fell in love with how smart he was and how much he poured into everybody and how handsome he was. But I talked to him about getting married in the future, and he said, no, I'll never get married again. So I was super crushed. So that was the beginning of ours.
So yeah, I was married once before, and
What?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Ba-dum-bum. And so I was out of that marriage about 4 or 5 years. Moved into the banking in Arizona, and the two things that I love, one or two things I love about my wife, is how incredibly caring she is about everybody, and how willing she is to put herself out there to help you. Because literally, the first thing she did when she came up to me, she looked me up and down, totally undressed me with her eyes. At least that's what I thought. And she was, hey, if you have any questions, if there's anything I can help you with, please just let me know if you need any help with anything. And I'm like, whoa, okay, this is nice. Now, it's a long story, but I was dating somebody at that time.
That worked at the bank,
That
too.
worked at that bank. So I'm always a gentleman. I don't do anything inappropriate. But after that was over, I'm like, I'm calling this lady.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah.
Thank you. All right, we're going to jump into intimacy, but I'm going to read one more quote. To love ourselves and support each other in the process of becoming real is perhaps the greatest single act of daring greatly. All right, today is on vulnerability. I'm going to have you guys all just shout out what
Intimacy.
Sorry. Vulnerability and intimacy.
I'm her English coach too.
You are. Intimacy, when that word, intimacy, you guys just shout out what intimacy is or means. Love,
Openness.
closeness, sharing, openness, love, honesty,
The openness,
transparency. What was that, Gina?
I said transparency.
Transparency,
Connection.
awesome. Say it in Spanish.
vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
Her English coach too.
Yeah.
I need one too.
Well, we have an emotionally mature audience here today. Typically, especially with guys, when you ask them what does intimacy mean, usually physical touch, physical attraction, sex, because in general, that's just the image that's portrayed. And we really are very appreciative that you all have the understanding and the appreciation that intimacy is so much beyond the physical. Just in the dictionary alone, it describes intimacy as a close familiarity or a friendship. And one of the ways that Michelle and I have found it most impactful for us to deliver the message on intimacy is to share some of the things that we've been through.
Intimacy starts with me.
So into me, see.
And you're going to share intimacy starts with, you want to repeat
No,
that for
go
the
ahead.
men?
Go ahead.
You have to repeat that for the men. Intimacy starts with where? For you.
Intimacy starts with myself.
Yeah, right.
And, it's very interesting because, 2020 with COVID and everything, we call it the beginning of the years of exposure, because COVID has really had a lot of impact on a lot of people and a lot of marriages. And it's given us the opportunity to either point out each other's flaws, because we've got all that stress on top of us. We've got each other almost 24/7 in front of each other, and we have the opportunity to either point out our flaws, or like what was in the devotional that you read about with Noah, is the two sons that took the opportunity and made the choice to honor and to cover their father, who had fallen over drunk. He had a great night, whatever, and instead of pointing out his flaws, that he overindulged and he got drunk and maybe that's not a great idea, they walked backwards so that they wouldn't see him in his flaws. They woke back. That's the reason why they walked backwards, so they weren't identifying his flaws, and covered his nakedness with a blanket. That's one of the reasons why that was pointed out in the devotional.
It's
And
beautiful.
when we talk about intimacy, there's so many layers to it, and you'll start to hear me talk real passionately about this, because it affects me. I'm not a real emotional, kind of a guy, but when we talk about intimacy and the hurts that I brought as a young child into the marriage with Michelle, we have gotten really good at exposing those flaws.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, Jeff, because intimacy, into me, see. So let's all say that. Let's say the word. Let's say intimacy again. 1, 2, 3. Intimacy.
Intimacy.
And then into me, see.
Into me, see.
Because until I could allow, and this is really amazing what I uncovered with the help of great coaches and great pastors like Ashley and Clayton, is that intimacy and intimacy, we must give permission to ourselves, we must give permission to God, and we must give permission to our spouse to see into me, see. Because if we don't open up the chest cavity and expose the inside of us from all the hurt pockets and all the inner vows that we've spoke along the way until we met him. We all went around this morning and talked about how we met. But before you met your spouse, there was a lot of inner vows and a lot of hurt pockets and a lot of affirmations you spoke from a small child till the time you met them that we hold on to so tightly, and we shut down so hard, whether we know it or not. And even though we say we're a child of the Most High God, we are loved, we are perfect, we're created in His image, He knew me in my mother's womb, do we really believe that? Do we really allow God to do what He said He would do? Do I really open that chest cavity and say, I'm willing to expose everything to you? And do I get quiet with Him and say, see into me, intimacy, into me, you see God, and am I okay with that? Because without doing that, I can never be real with Michelle. I can never be real with Jesus. And most of all, I can never be real with Jeff.
And
It's good, Michelle.
here's a quote that I found exactly talking about what Michelle's talking about. Intimacy with your spouse deepens the closeness you share with them, and it strengthens the connection with yourself. Your spouse is a mirror that reflects back to you the undiscovered elements of who you are. That's the amazing thing that Michelle and I keep finding out, is God put us together for reasons. There are many reasons, but one of those most important reasons is to heal each other.
Yes.
If we so choose to let each other.
And that's the key. And you'll hear cliche things about I'm a better man because of my wife. When you get to that place of intimacy, when you open your heart cavity, and for me, I've got massive brick walls that I put up with my heart because of the hurts that I brought from when I was a little kid, the hurts that I brought when my father abandoned me, the hurts that I brought because of the things that my first wife did. Now, I own a lot of the stuff because that all happens, but that's not the class we're doing today. But
The bags you loaded up.
I brought massive suitcases with me to the marriage with Michelle, and I have a choice to take down those bricks, sometimes brick by brick. And when Michelle's loving on me, when Michelle's speaking life into me, when Michelle's building me up with the words that she uses, each one of those bricks falls away and crumbles away and is gone. And that is a sense of intimacy, of friendship that I cherish beyond almost all others except for my relationship with God.
And then we can have the most ultimate intimacy where two people become one. And that's in the intimacy part in the bedroom of loving and exposing everything of who we are. Because to get naked, and it's not just our clothes, but our true self, is that you stand there in your true form, whether you have clothes on or not, and that he sees everything of me, every hurt pocket, every interval, every affirmation, good or bad, that I ever made, that he, by him knowing all of this, he will still love me and see me for the first person that he fell in love with, whether it was my eyes or my hair or my body or my words or my caring, because that's the most vulnerable state we can be in, is being exposed.
You know, and that's a great point as well. The first thing I fell in love with Michelle was her heart. And all of the things that we've been talking about the previous 2 days, all of the things that you've read, all of the things that you've looked at with marriage books, self-help books, whatever it is, it goes on to describe how important it is to speak life into your spouse, to speak life into your partner, because the first thing I fell in love with Michelle was her kindness. The instant we get into a conflict, into a fight or heated fellowship,
Guess what goes out the window?
or whatever you want to call it,
It's my kindness.
is the kindness.
Unkindness.
And I fall out of love with Michelle, and I'm admitting it. I'm admitting it. This is my fault. I should be better than this, but many, many, many times I am not. I am in the flesh. I am not in the Holy Spirit. I get mean, I get angry, and I come right back at her. And she loved me for my kindness. She loves me for my kindness. She loves me for my consideration of her feelings. And again, like I was talking about the cascading effect with the love languages, when we do that, we start pulling away the words of affirmation. We start pulling away the physical touch. And that intimacy, that trust, that belief, that being a cheerleader, helping make my wife better. And I love when Michelle says this. I'm helping prepare her for heaven.
He's helping me and getting me ready to meet Jesus. He has a choice to bring out the best version of Michelle so that I could live in this world and be the most amazing gift, so that when I meet Jesus, I'm ready for him to say, good job, my good and faithful student or daughter. And if when he brings out the worst in me, that is not a really good place to meet Jesus at. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back and we're going to talk about everything I filled my bag with and my luggage and all the suitcases and before I met Jeff. So as you go through life, you create her pockets, you create intervals. And I must have been 3 or 4 years old. And I remember my address so clearly. And I've been gone from that address for a long, long time, for probably over 40 years, maybe 39 years. My address was 4878 West Berkeley Road. And this little girl that's 3 or 4 years old has a defining moment where I see two of the most important people in my life. The first man that God ever gave me in physical form, and the first female God ever gave me in physical form. And they're having a major fight. I don't know what the fight was about. I can't even recall what the subject was about. all I recall is that I was jumping up and down and I was saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. Intimacy, intimacy. I was jumping up and down with them and I wanted them to quit fighting. Well, I have 4 other sisters and I don't know where they were. I just knew where I was and I'm jumping up and down and I wanted them to stop fighting. I wanted them to look at me. This house, this living room has a huge window in the middle and 2 side windows that open. And somehow my dad ended up outside and I seen him ask me to open the door for him because she locked him out. And I looked at her and she said, you better not open that door. And I must have been like I said, 3 or 4 years old. And I created at that moment this fear from somebody that I loved. I would have fear and I wanted to help somebody. And I told Jeff that was part of my defining moment as an adult, that I want to help everybody, but I'm also fearful at the same time, was that defining moment. Those windows have always been so huge to me when I tell our story and we go through therapy. Fast forward that moment of 3 or 4 years old. I'm 40 years old meeting my husband, and I'm no longer that victim of jumping up and down with 2 people that are fighting, but without knowing it, all the hurt pockets I created through those lives and those years with my parents, I brought those in the suitcases when I met him. And through that piece is, we were so intimate when we first met. One of my inner vows that I never told him is that it was such a struggle in my first marriage is intimacy and sex with my husband. We would fight about it all the time. He never made me feel safe and I never wanted to be intimate with him. And I promised.
Explain what an inner vow is.
An inner vow was at that defining moment was with my ex-husband is that I will never deny, if God blesses me with another husband, I will never deny him sex. I made an inner vow.
Yeah, it's an inner
It's an
pact.
inner pact with you and your soul and you and yourself. You're Michelle, with his inner vow with Jeff. Like Jeff's inner vow was, I'm never getting married again.
It's always never or always.
Yeah,
Never or
Jeff
always.
said, I'm never getting married again. That was his inner vow. The pain was too big. I'm never going to get married again. I'm never going to have another child because I'm never going to have the system take him away. Those were inner vows he made with them. I made inner vows that day with that fighting. Nobody's going to treat me the way my mom and dad are treating themselves. No one's going to control me. No one's going to tell me not to unlock that door. And I lived that out in my personality. So those inner vows that I made that he was never a part of, and this is what I want you to remember through that pain, is if we're not careful, the people that cut you, if you're not careful, you will bleed on the people that never cut you.
Say that again. Yeah.
If we're not careful, I will bleed on the people that never cut me. On my children, on my spouse, on my friends. I will bleed on them because the cuts that ever happen with people that hurt me, whether they meant to or not, if we don't unpack those inner vows and heal them, and guess what? Also, he'll help me try to heal them. And I'm like, leave me alone. Leave me alone. He's trying to clean the wound. He's trying to put Neosporin on it. He's trying to bandage it up. And he wants the bleeding to stop. But if we're not willing to go inside and understand where that came from, and we're not willing to expose that darkness or that hurt or that ugliness, then we can never enjoy the true beauty of what God has really given us.
Or if I don't nurture the intimacy, the intimate friendship that we have in our marriage, in our relationship, I will never have the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely.
You'll never open up and give me that opportunity. Now, on my side as a young child, at 4 years old, I was abandoned by my father on Christmas Day. I was sitting at a window, another big bay window of my grandpa's parent. My grandpa. That's interesting. I love learning this stuff. My grandpa's house, and I was waiting for him to drive up. He promised he would be there for Christmas Day. That was the last time I saw him until I was a teenager. So, massive sense of abandonment. That's been a struggle of mine for when I was 4 years old on. there's been a couple of experiences as a young child of control being taken away from me. I was molested by my female babysitter at 7 years old. A lot of wacky stuff was put into my head from that, but there was a sense of control that was taken away from me at that point as well. So here comes Jeff in his suit to the bank, looking at Michelle, I'm an all-together kind of guy. You can see my cape flapping in the wind, and I got all this stuff I'm bringing to her. So as we evolve, as we go through this relationship, I'm loving on her. I'm appreciating her. She is I can't believe how much that she has cheered me on, even when I don't deserve it sometimes.
There was a defining moment in my house that I had never experienced, but I seen on all the love stories and movies. I remember looking at him as he left one night, and I had a peephole in the door, and I looked through the peephole and seen him walking away, and I literally leaned against the door and was sliding down saying, oh my gosh, is this for real? I had never experienced that kind of love. I had never experienced that kind of fullness and wholeness. And little did we know that the beginning of that eros and love and the intimacy and the love and the security he made me feel, that we went from having sex every single day, and even one time, I wouldn't even have sex with my ex-husband if someone was in the house 500 feet away.
In the far bedroom.
I wouldn't even. Don't even consider it. This can be embarrassing. I've never shared. I've never talked about sex with my twin sister ever. And we used to have sex so much that I was asleep one moment and my sister and my brother-in-law were in the bed next to us in New York, and we were
sharing
having
a
sex
hotel room.
in the same room. I'm like, and I was scared to tell him no, and I was scared for her to know. How do we go from that to not having sex for weeks? Because I started to unload my bag, and I started to let him see all of this, and I started to be unattractive to him at times, and I started to be hurtful to him at times, and the last thing he wanted to be was intimate with me. The last thing I ever wanted to be was rejected from him.
And one of the God gives you plenty of opportunities to learn, and one of the biggest opportunities he gave us is when I decided to join Michelle in the world of real estate. And she obviously had decades of experience and had established a business and a career, and I was walking into it from my career where I was the guy that everybody came to for all the answers. I knew all the answers. I knew the whole system. I came in and we did not have clarity of vision. We did not talk about our expectations. We did not talk about how we were going to support each other. We came in, she had this vision of what I would do, and I came in of what this vision would look like, and they were completely opposite, and we ended up tearing into each other some pretty hardcore.
I knew, and I know this still to today, he has what I lack. He has intellectual, analytical, learner, and talent. He has that. And what I bring, my woo, my competition, my communication, and when we have those, so when we're together, we dance in perfect harmony and perfect step. We can salsa like no other in our mind. But when we're not, we're two individual people doing this. We got really good at doing this.
And guess
what?
what?
First year,
the suitcases start flying open when that happens.
oh man, they were all open. Everything was out, dropped in front, and there was a defining moment that we sat with our team leader. It was our first year in real estate, and he said, I just brought you guys in just to talk to you about how wonderful you are. You guys are like the top performers. I want to put you on stage, and you're making so much money. You look good, smell good, and act good. And guess what Jeff says?
I don't think I can do this right now.
And guess what I say? Oh, you're gonna do this right now. You're gonna tell him how mean you are to me right now.
Right.
And Jeff takes the deep breath, and he says, with tears in his eyes, he's only cried 3 times in 10 years that I had seen. And one of them was my sister's death. The other one was one of his clients that died, and he was about to cry in front of this stranger that he had no connection with. He had no deep emotions with. As a matter of fact, he wouldn't even have called that guy his friend. And I said, you're going to do this, because I'm saying that you weren't connected yet. And I pushed
I
him.
wasn't in a safe place to even start talking about that kind of stuff.
And Jeff says to him, all right, we'll do this. And I'm like, holy crap, what's about to happen? And you said those words of what?
I feel like I'm losing my best friend.
And for 2 seconds, when he said, I feel like I'm losing my best friend, I went, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for him. And I immediately went into, you're crazy. I'm right here. You're not losing your best friend. I mean, I'm at a 3 and I'm at a 7 in our marriage. Because I went back to my defining inner pockets and moments that I haven't cussed at him. I haven't locked him out of the house. I haven't told you off. I haven't thrown anything at you. I'm like, we're good. Because in my mind, we were good. We were still good. He was just a little heated because I wanted him to get us to $1 million in GCI. That's gross commission income. And I was going to push him there, whether he liked it or not. He joined my team, and he was going to be on board. I was going to steamroll him. Jeff has an analogy. You're good.
And guess what? Intimacy went bye-bye. Because I immediately felt abandoned. My best friend just laughed at me and said, I don't care what you're feeling. Suck it up, Buttercup. Get over it.
I do that a lot without even saying those words. Because the number one need...
Number 2.
Wait, the number one need for every human being is love. So write that down. The number one need for every human being is love.
And that has different definitions for different people.
The number one fear for every human being is rejection. Rejection. The number one fear is rejection.
And that can
rejection
come in
could
many
be in
different
anything.
ways.
His is abandonment. Mine is control or pointing fingers at me. I don't want to be vulnerable. And at that moment, what we do when we don't want to be vulnerable, let's scoot a little closer, is we laugh, we make jokes. We're like, I'm not being mean to you. We point to someone else. We reflect and deflect. We do all of this because we don't want to.
Something goes on right here.
We don't want the intimacy. I know, breaking open the chest cavity. He let me see him for 3 seconds, and I immediately didn't acknowledge it. I didn't thank him, and I further said, "You're dumb, stupid, and an idiot. I'm right here. I'm the 3-year-old little girl doing this in that meeting. See me, listen to me, stop." I'm like, are you crazy? Look how good I look. Look how nice I am to you. I let you in my world. And all I was doing was abandoning him, bringing his hurt pockets, and exposing all his alarms. All his alarms were going off, and all my alarms were going off.
So needless to say, we've worked for a number of years.
We moved in with Ashley and Clayton.
They said that a few times. Is that for real?
No.
Well,
It may feel like it to them.
they made us move around the corner from them. Yeah.
Basically, yes.
They are over a lot.
So what has happened from that point to this is we got real. I'm gonna say some mean words. The shit was stinky, ugly, and we unpacked it. We got in the mud and the muck, and we got through it. But we would have never done that through the gracious of the love of God, the being exposed and having people to call us out. It's great, and I'm gonna tell you because I love a lot of you guys. It's great for me to be your friend, but sometimes I won't call you out on your shit. And they did. They looked at me and said, "You're doing this, and you need to stop." And I hated it. And they said the same to him. You're being mean, and you guys need to stop. And they called us out. And if they wouldn't have called us out, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
You know, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that reserves you guys. Thank you for your sharing of vulnerability thus far. Thank you.
And I love
Thank you.
that God continuously gives us things that will challenge us, stretch us, maybe feel a little bit uncomfortable or a lot uncomfortable. But because of that, we get to share. I mean, we get to be here sharing with you in an amazing place what we've been through, and hopefully something we say. One of my prayers this morning was that we say something that God wants to come through us that helps somebody.
We don't go through our paths in life We don't go through these hurts and these things for us to stay stuck in them. We all have a shack. If you haven't
I
watched
love
the
this
movie The
part.
Shack, my shack moment is that house at 4878 West Berkeley Road.
Share that.
And if you know The Shack, if you watch The Shack, Mackenzie has to go back to The Shack and God wants to meet him there. And he says, why did you bring me back here? Why did you bring me back here? It's his worst pain where his daughter was murdered. Why did you bring me back to The Shack? And he said, because this is where you got stuck, Mackenzie. And if you don't go back to your shack, wherever that is, he cannot deliver you because you chose to stay stuck in the shack. Mine was 4878, and this year at Christmas, Jeff and I went to 4878 West Berkeley, not knowing what I wanted. I just said, hey, let's go love on whoever lives there. I bought them flowers. It's a Hispanic area, and I bought them pan de huevo. I bought them cupcakes. I bought them brownies. He's like, okay, we can't carry all this. And I didn't have any expectations other than I don't know what I was doing, but I was going to go look at that house. And when I got there and we knocked on the door and we were dressed up because it was day before, it was Christmas Eve, I think. And we knock and someone looks through the 3 windows. And
Those 3 huge windows.
yes, and she looks at us and she doesn't know who we are. And she's like, who are these people? And I look at Jeff, and Jeff's with not moving his lips. And Jeff's waving, and Jeff goes, I look like a police officer. And I go, dang, you do. And I don't know what her perception was, but she did not open the door. And I left, and I laid the cupcakes and everything, and I set the flowers down. And I have revisited that scenario, and I've unpacked it with them. And today, God let me have a revelation when we were having devotional time this morning.
So powerful.
He said, I never wanted her to answer the door for you, because I'm like, why didn't she answer the door? Why couldn't I see the living room? Why couldn't I see the house? And when I was standing in a moment with Jeff making me laugh about the cop, we laughed and made a new memory on a porch that caused me a lot of pain. And God gave me a new perspective of my shack. And I said, it's so great for you to be here. And what I thought the moment was about was that here's a healthy man and you're no longer here. But what he told me this morning is, I never wanted her to answer the door for you because you still live like you're the girl locked in that house when I brought you so far out. He said, you have been out of there, but you show up to the world sometimes as the little girl still behind there afraid to answer the door. So when he revealed that to me today, if I don't let go of that, I may have left Berkeley. My parents may not even be on earth anymore, but I will continue to bleed on people in my life because of my hurt pockets. I was always disappointed in men, and I didn't trust men because the first man God gave me let me down, and that was my father. And he was a good man, but he had his own hurts. And when he gives me Jeff, if I'm not careful, I will bleed on Jeff when Jeff's just trying to love me. Jeff's just trying to tell me I'm perfect. And I see the women even here today. The husbands will see them in the spa or in the broom, and they're saying, you look so sexy being naked. That's my favorite part. And the women go, stop. We hide because someone told us we don't look good. And it's not them, it's us. We are telling those inner vows that we're not good enough, we're not skinny enough, we have stretch marks, we have scars, and we are the ones saying that when they've never said this to us. And they can't enjoy us if we don't stop saying that to ourselves.
And sometimes for the men, sometimes we can heal our wives just simply by standing next to them. Sometimes we can heal our wives just by going wherever it is that they want to go, for whatever reason it is they want to go there. And just having the grace and the intimate connection and the love and the peace to say, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. And I don't understand why. I don't understand the reason behind it. But I'm here. I'm here next to you. I'm on your shoulder. Whatever you need.
And the last thing I'll share is when I left those flowers there, I realized that God was saying, This is your memorial stone. You left flowers at that door, and I never meant them for her. I meant them for you, so that you could walk away from your shack today. So I encourage you guys to dig deep, to let them see into you. Take off the mask. We have been wearing the mask before 2020, and we all complain, but we walk around with those masks every single day. Take the mask off, open the chest cavity, and let your spouse in, because the greatest joy is for him to love you with everything you are and everything you've experienced. And if you so choose to let him, like Jeff has, like I've let him, is he has healed a lot of my hurt pockets. And he is a healthy man that God's given me to enjoy, to have pleasure with, and to be able to love if I so choose to let him. All right?
So good, guys.
Sorry.
Jeff and Michelle, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank
Let
you.
me piggyback off something that Jeff just said, because he said, Michelle said, you know, you'll bleed on the people that didn't cut you, but your spouse has the ability to heal you.
Yeah.
And Jeff said sometimes. I'll change that around and say you have the opportunity to heal your spouse every time, not sometimes. Because it's basically the difference if there's a cut, you know, do I pour alcohol on it and make it burn?
Whoa.
Or do I bring a healing salve to bring healing and bring grace? As a spouse, you have the ability to cover those cuts from the past that maybe you didn't care, that you didn't cut, but you have the ability to heal your spouse every single time. But the problem is, if we don't let our spouses see the cuts, they can't bring the healing.
Yes.
And so you literally, like she said, you have to open your chest cavity up and be vulnerable with the person that means the most to you. Well, I can't do that. It takes supernatural strength to be able to do that. And here's the thing. I've seen it in counseling. We've seen it in talking to people. What will happen is those defenses will start popping up, right? You'll get angry. You get prideful. You'll throw a joke. You'll throw sarcasm. Those are all defense mechanisms because you don't want to let them in. But inside of every hurting man is a little boy.
Yes.
And inside of every hurting woman is a little girl. And you've got to go there. You've got it. If you want to truly have intimacy on a deeper level with your spouse, you have to break open that and allow not only yourself to go back in, to allow God to come in, but ultimately to allow your spouse in there. And you can sit there and go, I don't know if I can, I don't think I can do that.